This week, there was an incident involving Carrie Barrel, a former Miss California, and now a former member of the U.S. Religious Liberty Commission. You've likely seen the video making its rounds, and just in case you haven't seen it, here's a snippet of their exchange.
Do you believe someone can stand firmly against anti-Semitism, including what you experienced, and at the same time condemn the mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza, or reject political Zionism, or not support the political state of Israel? Or do you believe that speaking out about what many Americans view as genocide in Gaza should be treated as anti-Semitic?
What I'll say is that Natan Sharansky says there's three things that you shouldn't do with Israel. You shouldn't delegitimize it, you shouldn't demonize it, and you shouldn't apply a double standard. You can abide by those three things, you're not anti-Semitic.
So by not being a Zionist, does that make you an anti-Semite?
I don't think you need to be a Zionist to support a country that defends itself and is free and religious in a hostile neighborhood.
So is anti-Zionism
Hold on
anti-Semitism?
one second, Carrie.
Yes.
It is? It is?
Sorry.
Yes.
You know, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, according to you?
As I said, anti-Zionism, by denying the right of the Jews to have their own state while not saying the same.
Any other peoples.
That is a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
We're told that if you're against the state of modern Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Because if you're not also against the Muslim and Christian nations, then you're singling out the only Jewish state in the world. And that is anti-Semitic. Today I want to show you why this argument is fundamentally flawed, and why opposing the way modern Israel exists is not anti-Semitic, but rather it's a principled and biblical position to take. The argument and discussion is assuming that there is an equivalence to the modern state of Israel and Muslim and Christian nations, as they say.
In a world where there are tens of Muslim countries and tens of Christian countries, you do not believe the Jews deserve one country. Don't tell me you're not anti-Jewish. You are anti-Jewish.
There are countries today that have Christianity or Islam enshrined in their law as their national religion. But when you look at the brass tacks, there is no comparison between modern Israel in these nations. Let me explain what I mean. There are dozens of Israeli laws that from its inception have enforced, enshrined, or encouraged discrimination, segregation, and Jewish supremacy. One of the most recent and problematic laws that had constitutionally codified what had already been in practice was their 2018 Basic Law, Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. This law explicitly states that the right to exercise national self-determination inside the state of Israel is unique to the Jewish people and the Jewish people only. In Bibi Netanyahu's own words, he said that Israel is a nation state for the Jewish people and them alone. So you really have to stop and understand what that means. It means that the right to self-determination in the state of modern Israel is not for all Israeli citizens, but only for its Jewish citizens. And what many people don't realize is that this law is including the entire world's Jewry. So that includes Jews who have never been to modern Israel.
Never been.
Jews who never want to go to modern Israel. And even Jews who believe that modern Israel shouldn't exist.
The state of Israel is a rebellion against God.
By modern Israel's own laws, it states that it is representative of every Jewish person everywhere, citizen or not. What country with Islam or Christianity enshrined as its national religion claims to represent every Christian or Muslim in the world? Or what nation in the world claims that all of its citizens don't have right to self-determination, but rather only those who are of a specific group, including those who don't even live in their country? There are none. So the modern state of Israel is the only nation in the world that does not exist for its citizens. They are a state for a specific group, for Jewish people. Notably, this law makes no mention of equality, democracy, or the rights of 20% of Israeli society. You know, the 2.25 million people who are not Jewish. Therefore, they are all by law technically second-class citizens. So before we've even gotten too deep, this claim has already fallen apart. Israel, unlike any other nation on earth, is a country that constitutionally declares itself to be a nation for only some of its citizens, and of course to others worldwide who are not citizens. But you might ask, don't Arab citizens in Israel still have rights and can vote? Yes, I will not deny that they have superficial equality in many areas. So let's look at how this system functions on the ground. The state of Israel controls 93% of all of the land in their state. This is done through the Israeli Land Authority. It's a government agency. But here's the key. Almost half of this authority's governing council consists of people from the Jewish National Fund. This is a private organization who has an explicit charter to acquire and develop land for the purpose of settling Jews. The JNF owns 13% of all of the land in modern Israel. Because about 50% of Israel's land authority is filled by people who are a part of this private organization, they have veto power over how 80% of the land in modern Israel is allocated. That means that a private organization whose explicit aim is for a Jewish-only settlement controls policy for over 93% of the country's land. And who do you think that they're going to vote for that land to be allocated to? And the impacts of this are seen when you look at all of the data. For example, the Israeli government invests more in illegal settlements in the West Bank than they do for the Arabs inside of Israel. Not to mention, in 2011, the Admissions Committee law stated that committees in nearly half of all of the towns in the modern state of Israel can use an excuse, like saying someone is socially unacceptable, aka Arab, to reject their application to live in their town, a mechanism that has been used to exclude Arab citizens from specific communities. And then there's the Citizen and Entry into Israel law. In 2005, the Prime Minister Ariel Sharon made the intention pretty clear. He said there is no need to hide behind security arguments. We don't need to lie and say that we're doing this for security, essentially, is what he's saying. There is a need for the existence of a Jewish state. The only thing that they're trying to secure is a Jewish majority. I'm not even trying to joke here, or I'm not being extreme, but the only parallel I can think of that compares to modern Israel requires us to go in the past, to apartheid South Africa and Jim Crow America. Systems that have been dismantled precisely because we recognize that they were incompatible with democracy, morality, ethics, and God-given human rights. We're told that it's wrong for us to oppose the way that this only Jewish state in the world is behaving, but yet that statement in itself is discriminatory because 1/5 of their population, over 2 million people, are not Jewish. So what does it even mean to be Jewish by their law? Israeli law defines being a Jew as someone who was born of a Jewish mother or has converted to Judaism and is not a member of another religion. Let's think about this a little bit. If being Jewish isn't about religion, because according to them, you can be an atheist Jew, as most Israeli Jews self-identify as atheists. And it's also not about ethnicity, because anyone from any background can convert to Judaism. Then real-life application is violating their own definition and making it null and void. Because if being a Jew by modern Israel's own definition doesn't consistently require one to be ethnically Jewish or religiously Jewish, so someone could be not ethnically Jewish and not practicing Judaism but still be considered a Jew, that violates the modern state's own definition of what it means to be Jewish, right? So modern Israel has made laws that uphold supremacy for members of a specific group, a group that they've defined, and that definition is allowed to be constantly violated. Therefore, their definition of what it means to be a Jew is subjective to their own personal preference. To me, this is very similar to the classifications that we see in Jim Crow. In the American South, there were claims of definitions of what it meant to be black or white. Yet mixed-race individuals expose the incoherence and the inconsistencies of these definitions, because two siblings could present in two totally different ways. One could look white, the other can look black. Both are the same exact genetically, but yet one would get privileges and the other would not, proving that their system was based on subjective preference and that it was built to maintain racial hierarchy and supremacy. And this is seen clearly when we look at modern Israel's system. Someone can convert to Judaism and they're unable to change anything about themselves ethnically, and even apparently they can not even change their religion really, and they would gain full national rights. This exposes that their system has nothing to do with Jewishness. If modern Israel's governmental structure from its inception is legitimately functioning in a supremacist way, which I've well documented in this video by simply touching the tip of the iceberg, then why would opposing that be anti-Semitic? The uniqueness of being the only Jewish state in the world does not give you immunity from legitimate criticism or actual injustices. We understand that when we call things out, we are opposing the actions and policies. We're not opposing the identity. Opposing modern Israel's constitutional Jewish supremacy, opposing its genocide in Gaza and its illegal annexation of the West Bank, that's opposing specific government structures and policies and actions. That's not opposing Jewish people or Judaism. They would like us to make that conflation because then they can say, look, they're being anti-Semitic by saying that Jewish people are doing all these things. But that's not reality, and none of us should fall for that trick. There are many Jewish people in this world, including Jewish organizations inside of modern Israel, who oppose these policies, and they're not being anti-Semitic, and neither are we. And here's the ironic twist. Why isn't modern Israel's opposition to the only Palestinian state not also anti-Semitic? Or are we going to continue with this supremacy where anti-Semitism is only for Jewish people, despite there being millions of other Semitic people in the world, including the Palestinians? Just as the world's demand for the end of apartheid South Africa was not a call for the end of South Africa itself, because it's still on the map, guys, still here, just the apartheid part has gone away. And just like people in the world were for the ending of Nazi Germany, not for the end of Germany itself, but for the end of the Nazi part. Being against Zionist modern Israel or Jewish supremacy modern Israel isn't to be against Israel itself. That can still exist, but the Zionist part, the Jewish supremacy part, I think we're going to have to leave that behind. And when people opposed Jim Crow, they were not being anti-white. They were opposing the system of racial supremacy. In the same sense, opposing modern Israel's Jewish supremacy that's enshrined in its constitutional law is not anti-Semitic. It's simply opposing everything we are called as Christians to oppose. People can legitimately demand the end to a Jewish supremacy state while supporting the idea of a state where Israeli citizens, both Jewish and Arab, live as equals, and where their neighbors have their God-given right to self-determination, safety, and protection without apartheid being imposed on them and without evil, violent settlers terrorizing them every single day. There's only one place in the world where these structures exist right now. So sadly, the only Jewish state in the world is also the only state in the world upholding apartheid and explicit supremacy. It's a biblical stance to support equality, an end to oppression, an end to injustice, and an end to genocide. That's not being anti-Semitic. It's just as Carrie Barrel stated. It's just anti-supremacy.
I don't think the average American has a real sense of what we're doing over there. And I emphasize what we're doing because it's not possible without American support. I have heard people say over and over again that there are great evils happening in the world, states across the world perpetrating evils against whole groups of people. Why pick on Israel? And the thing I say is, I'm an American. This is the thing that we have our fingerprints on. Those bombs over Gaza, the planes that drop bombs on Gaza, the plaques that I saw, for instance, in Jerusalem, all of that is America. And we are going around the world propping ourselves up as the font of democracy. We are going around the world propping Israel up as the only democracy in Middle East. This is a deep, deep fiction, a very, very dangerous fiction that must be addressed.
A person who can justify genocide, a person who can commit genocide, I can't count him as a Jew. People who justify genocide, they are more Nazis than Jews.